Jai Hind students, today we are going to discuss the revision portions of economics. So first we are the deleted portions as due to this pandemic situation. So the deleted portions are Unit 2 Money and Banking, control of under that control of credit through bank rate, CRR, SLR, repo rate and reverse repo rate and open market operations and margin requirements have been deleted. And Unit 5 Balance of Payments, under that balance of payment deficit meaning determination of exchange rate in a free market, and the B part Indian economic development, Unit 7, that is under that current challenges facing Indian economy, that growth of education sector in India, and alternative under that alternative, and another topic is alternative farming. It's organic farming has been deleted, and infrastructure under that energy portion, infrastructure chapter, energy portion has been deleted, other portions are there. Next is Indian economy on the eve of independence, the first chapter of Indian economy, that's the Indian economy on the eve of independence. That in brief we are going to look what and all things are covered under that. As an introduction, we can say that Indian economy on the eve of independence deals with the Indian economy as we inherited it from British in 1947. It focuses on the following points: the state of agriculture and industrial sector on the eve of independence, and India's foreign trade under the British rule, demographic profile during the British rule, occupational structure and infrastructure on the eve of independence. So these are the topics that we are going to discuss in this chapter. The C and topics: agricultural sector, industrial sector, foreign trader, demographic condition, then occupational structure and infrastructure. In agriculture sector, we can say that on the eve of independence, Indian agriculture became backward, stagnant and non-vibrant under the British rule. Weak productive accumulation, unemployment and underemployment, low levels of production and productivity, subdivision of land holdings. Indian agriculture was primitive and stagnant. The main causes of stagnation of agriculture sector was as follows: land tenure system, zamindari system, mahalwari system, rayatwari system, and commercialization of agriculture and partition of the country. Agriculture plays an important part in the economic development. It provides the food security to the country. Also, its backbone for many industries. At the time of independence, almost 85% of the total population was dependent on agriculture. India's agriculture sector saw no growth during the colonial period. Productivity was stagnant. In fact, it was deteriorating. The total output increased by just 0.5% per annum before independence. Farm output from year 1891 to 1947 was not more than 0.11%. Many reasons were behind that, but prominent were the land settlement and exploitation of Indian farming by British India for their benefit. In the zamindari system, the real benefits of the agriculture went straight in the hands of zamindars. Farmers end up getting nothing even after toiling hard for it. Lack of fertilizers, inferior quality of seeds, and less use of modern technology were also responsible for the murky state of agriculture. Adding fuel on that was the commercialization of it. British India compelled Indian farmers to grow more of cash crops instead of main crops. This eventually helped the British industries back home, as they were getting raw materials at very low prices. But Farmers were still on the darker side with no real benefits. Neither the Britishers nor the zamindars did anything for the farmers or farming. Their main interest was only to collect taxes even in the condition of a drought, famine, or floods. There was no mercy upon farmers. Further joy happened to agriculture because of the partition. Highly irrigated land went to Pakistan. On the western front, Punjab, which was rich in producing wheat, and East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, known for jute production, went to the divided nations. Thus, Indian jute industry suffered heavily. In a sense, contribution from agriculture sector to Indian economy was nil at the time of independence. So the next is industrial sector. Indian industrial sector was also crying off for development in the colonial rule. Like agriculture, no importance was given for development of industries. To see India growing industrially was against British rule. There were two reasons for keeping India away from modern industries. One was to keep India reduced to just as an exporter of prime raw materials for the major industries in Britain. Second is it was to turn the domestic market of India into a prime consumer of finished British goods. And industrialization of India could have weighted down both prospects of a British India. But these unfavorable policies lead to decline in the indigenous handicraft industries. This created enormous unemployment in the country, also a market which was now deprived of the supply of locally made goods. Second half of the 19th century saw a little progress in industrial development, but the pace was very slow and was confined to certain sectors only. Jute and cotton textile mills were the first ones. Later, paper, sugar, cement, etc. were set up. Major development came in the form of Tata Iron and Steel Company, TISCO, in 1907. However, there were hardly any capital goods industries to promote further industrialization of India. Foreign trade. India's foreign trade goes back to ancient times. It used to be one of the most important trading country. In the colonial period, India's foreign trade was restricted to Britain only. They had the monopoly over the Indian exports. India was allowed to trade with only few neighbor countries. Still, there was the generation of a large export surplus. This surplus came with a heavy cost. A spurt in export didn't bring any fortunes to India. Rather, it was used to pay for British expenditures on maintaining the army and setups. So, even high export couldn't turn around the murky picture of Indian economy. Demographic conditions. Details of the population of British India were collected from first in 1881 through a census. This census suffered for certain limitations, but it revealed that fact that the population was uneven in its growth. After 1881, a population census was taken even 10 years. India was in the stage of a first demographic transition before 1921. The second stage of such a transition happened after 1921. At this stage, however, neither the population growth nor the total population of India was very high. The social development indicators
were also not very encouraging at that time. The overall literacy was less than 16% and female literacy was around 7%. Public health facilities were unable to a very large sector of people. They were inadequate wherever they were available. Hence, water and airborne diseases attacked people in huge numbers and spread, causing a large number of deaths. The overall mortality rate was very high and infant mortality was alarming. It was 21 per thousand compared to the present rate of 63 per thousand. Life expectancy was 32 compared to the present day 63. Due to insufficient data, it is not possible to predict and discuss the level of poverty, but considering the situation, it obviously must have been high, contributing to the further deteriorating in India. Infrastructure. The state of infrastructure facilities, especially in the field of transport, communication, and energy, was very poor in India during the British rule in India. However, some efforts were made to develop basic infrastructure like roads, railways, ports, water transport, and post of British. The British rulers introduced railways in 1850 and Indian railways began operating from 1853. The development and the construction of railways by British rulers had affected the Indian economy in following ways. First, it provided cheap and rapid transport system, especially for distant travel. It broke geographical barriers and thus promoted national unity and undertaking efforts. It created new employment opportunities and it helped in controlling famines. It promoted foreign trade but benefited British more than Indians. It encouraged the process of industrialization. And the main reason for British rulers behind the beginning of railways in India were as following: to have effective control and administration over the vast country. In view of this, Britishers tried to link important administrative and military centers through railways, and second is earning profit was their motive. So this is about the overall gist of the Indian economy on the eve of independence. Then after that we are going to see the next Indian economy from 1950 to 1990. What was the situation? Types of economic system. Capitalist economy, socialist economy and mixed economy was the economic systems. And basis of different features, the ownership of resources, freedom of enterprises, motive, competition, distribution of income will come under this types of economic system. They are the main features. Economic planning. Planned coordination and utilization of available resources in an economy to achieve certain pre-specified social and economic objectives in a time-bound program. So that was Indian economy planning. Then what the definition is? Economic planning means utilization of countries' resources into different development activities in accordance with national priorities. So next is agriculture. How the agriculture was dealt with. To get free lands, they need to have a land reform. So land revenue system, zamindars collected rent from cultivators without any contribution to improvement of farm. Then low productivity. The Indian agriculture sector was deprived of irrigation facilities and technology advancement. Next, the land holding size. The adoption of advanced technology in the agriculture sector was very difficult. Next are the types of land reforms. Abolition of intermediaries was the one of the land reform, that is ownership of land will motivate cultivators to make improvement in agriculture production. Land ceiling, fixing a ceiling to redistribute surplus land among landless cultivators and prevent them from holding land below the minimum size. Land holdings consolidation, preventing the segmentation of subdivisions of land holdings to bring one large piece of land for productive purpose. Regulation of rent, determining the rent payable by the tenants. Cultivators were able to determine the measures of land reforms, abolition of intermediaries, tenancy reforms, regulation of rent, security of tenure, ownership of right of tenure, reorganization of agriculture, redistribution of land, consolidation of land holdings, cooperative farming were the measures. Just see what is land ceiling. Land ceiling means fixing the maximum size of land which could be owned by an individual. Purpose of a land ceiling was to reduce the concentration of land ownership in a few hands. Abolition of intermediaries meant some 2 lakh of tenants came into direct contact with the government. They were thus freed from being exploited by the zamindars. So land reforms were successful in Kerala and West Bengal because these states have had governments committed to the policy of land to the tiller. Unfortunately, other states did not have the same level of commitment, and vast inequality in land holdings continues to the today. Technical reforms or green revolution. So features of green revolution is important. Use of package input was one of the objective. Then scientific rotation of crops, credit and package inputs provided by government agencies, announcing minimum support pricing. Then minor irrigation works. History of green revolution. The beginning of the Green Revolution are often attributed to Norman Borlaug, an American scientist interested in agriculture. In 1940s, he began conducting research in Mexico and developed new disease-resistant high-yield varieties of wheat. Due to the success of Green Revolution in Mexico, its technology spread worldwide in 1950s and 1960s. The introduction of high-yielding varieties of seeds after 1965 and increased the use of fertilizers and irrigation provided the increase in production and improved agriculture in India. Next we move to industry. Role of industrial sector in India. Meeting ever increasing demand, raising people's income, high potential for growth, key to high volume of exports, promotes regional balance, then providing employment, leads to modernization and helps to modernize agriculture. So these are the roles of industrial sector. Next, industrial policy. What is the meaning? Industrial policy means rules, regulations, principles, policies and procedure laid down by government for regulating, developing and controlling industrial undertaking in the country. It prescribes the respective roles of the public, private, joint and cooperative sectors of the development of industries. It also indicates the role of the large, medium and small scale industries. Features of Industrial Policy Resolution 1956. Classification of industries. Industrial licensing. Stress on role of cottage and small scale industries. Reduction on regional disparities. Emphasis on industrial peace. Technical education and training. Industrial Policy Resolution 1956. Industrial policy is the instrument through which the government regulates the industrial activities in an economy. Objectives of Industrial Policy Resolution 1956 are accelerate the rate of growth and speed industrialization, develop heavy industries, expand public sector reduce disparities of income and wealth, build up large and cooperative sector, prevent monopolies and concentration of income and wealth. So these are the objectives of industrial policy research. So problems faced by small scale industries are the difficulty of finance, shortage of raw materials, difficulty of marketing, outdating machines and equipment, competition from large scale in industries and underutilized export potential, inadequate dispersal. So these are some of the problems faced by small scale industries. So this is very important. So another industrial policy resolution of 1990 was it raised the investment ceiling in plant and machinery of small scale industries, and it created central investment subsidy for this sector, and in rural and backward areas also assistance was granted to women entrepreneurs for widening the entrepreneurial base. Reservation of items to be produced by small scale industries was increased to 836. Small Industries Development Bank of India was established to ensure adequate flow of credit to small scale industries. Foreign trade pre 1991 trade policy, import substitution strategy, restrictions of foreign trade policies. Then, while import substitution was given a lot of importance, export promotion was not given any importance. So, in 70s, policy of liberalization was carried forward. So, this in 1880s, the special programs to promote export growth was introduced. Next is occupational structure. Distribution of working force into various sectors, primary, secondary and tertiary sector. So economic development and occupational structure. As country develops, there is a shift of workers from primary sector to secondary sector and tertiary sectors. So as country develops, the numbers of people engaged in the primary sector declines, while that in secondary sector and tertiary sector rises. So that is the condition of the developing economies. Next is the third chapter, liberalization, privatization and globalization. So economy after 1990, what was the situation? How Indian economy was saved. So as an introduction, we can say that July 1991, India has taken a series of measures to structure the economy and improve the BOP positions. The new economic policy introduced changes in several areas. The policy had salient features which are liberalization, that is internal and external, then extending privatization, then globalization of the economy, which are known as LPG, that is liberalization, privatization and globalization. Next, what is new economic policy? It refers to the ongoing economic liberalization or relaxation started in 1991 of the countries of economic policies. It was introduced with the goal of making the economy more market oriented and expanding the role of the private and foreign investment. So we can say that Manmohan Singh, the finance minister at that time, had brought the economic policy. Then he is also known as, Manmohan Singh is also known as father of Indian reforms. New economic policy undertaken since July 1991, viewed to increase the productivity and efficiency of the economy, reduce the competition and creating more competitive environment. Need of new economic policy. Due to economic crisis 1991, now foreign exchange reserve increased in national debt. So price rising. So these are the some of the things why we needed new economic policy. So again we can say that the independence era Indian economy from 1947 to 1991 was based on the mixed economy combining features of a capitalist and socialism. So resulting in a inward-looking interventionist policies and import substituting economy. The Indian economic currency, the rupee, was inconvertible, and high tariff and import licensing prevented foreign goods reaching the market. Then India also operated a system of central planning for the economy, in which firms required licenses to invest and develop. This model contributed to the widespread inefficiencies and corruptions, and the failing of the system were due to largely to its poor implementations. We can look into liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Liberalization. The first aspect of new economic policy was liberalization. Liberalization of an economy means removing or relaxing government controls and restrictions of economic activities. Release of for foreign investors, revaluation of Indian currencies, new industrial policies, new trade policies, import technology, and encouraging foreign tie-ups. Privatization in public sector. So these were main of the points of liberalization. Then the impacts of liberalization: positive effects, increase in foreign investment, increase in production, technological advancements, increase in GDP growth rate, and negative effects: increase in unemployment, decrease in tax receipts. Next, privatization. According to World Bank, privatization is the transfer of state-owned enterprises to private sector by sale of going concerns or by sale of assets following their liquidation. And increasing inefficiencies on part of public sector led to privatization. Forms of privatization: denationalization, joint venture, and leasing, then franchising. Features of privatization: decentralization, the transfer of ownership of productive assets to private sector. Entry of private sector industries into the areas exclusively reserved for state sector or which are considered exclusively monopolies of state. Limiting the scope of the public sector, or no more diversification of existing public sector undertakings. Advantages of privatization. Privatization helps to reduce the burden on government. It will help profit-making public sector unit to modernize and diversify their business. It will help in making public sector units more competitive. It will help to improving the quality of decision making, because the decisions are free from any political interference. And privatization may help in reviving sick units which are the liability of public sector. Then industrial growth, then increase the foreign investment, then increase in efficiency. Then disadvantages of privatization: industrial sickness, lack of welfare, class struggle, increase in inequality, opposition by employees, then problem of financing, then increase in unemployment, ignores the weaker sections, ignores the national importance. Globalization. Globalization means reduction or removal of government restrictions on the movement of goods and services, capital, technology, and talent across national boundaries, and it is the increasing interdependence, integration, and interaction among people and cooperation in various locations around the world. Impacts of globalization. Positive effects: expansion of market, development of infrastructure, higher living standards, international cooperation. Negative effects: cutthroat competitions, rise in monopoly, takeover of domestic firms, increase in inequalities. Characteristics of globalization. Economy of a country will open itself to global economy. It enables a country to purchase commodities from any country in the world, expanding the business across the world, and formulate plans for that removing difference between domestic market and foreign markets, acquiring factors of production, relaxation of restrictions on imports, easily securing the foreign exchange necessary for imports, developing a perspective that the whole world market in a simple market, developing production, manufacturing and distribution facility in any part of the world, substantially rising foreign direct investment in domestic industries and then projects. Sourcing system of hiring business services from external sources such as teaching, clinical advisors and call centers. Benefits of it to India, new ideas, employment generation, human capital formation and urban cities with a high-end technology and infrastructure facilities opposed by developed nations. Investment outflow from developing countries and rise in employment level in developed countries. So these are the main benefits. Then opposition, then outsourcing. Impact of NEP 1991 on Indian economy: increasing competition, more demanding customers, rapidly changing technological environment, necessity for changing, then need for developing human resources, then market orientation, then loss of budgetary support to public sector, then export a material of survival. Parts and division of new economic policy. There it is being divided into two, that is structural policies to strengthen the supply side of the economy. Sometimes the question may be asked, then under that the industrial policy, foreign investment policy, foreign trade or export import policy are introduced. Then stabilization policy to control demand side, that is what is the policies, fiscal policy and monetary policy introduced. An appraisal of LPG policies and economic reforms, the favor it increase in rate of economic growth, rise in foreign exchange reserve, inflow in foreign investment, control on inflation, increased rate of private sector, check on fiscal deficit, then decline of deficit in BOP, then neglect of agriculture, growing unemployment, low level of industrial growth, then regional disparities, then unhealthy impact on labor welfare, still the large number of poor and the middle class in India. Next main concept in this chapter is GST and demonetization. Demonetization, it's a concept. Demonetization is a situation where the central bank of the country withdraws the old currency notes of certain denominations as a official mode of payment. So demonetization has been done in various countries of the world in context of hyperinflation, wars of political upheavals. After demonetizing banknotes on two previous occasions in year 1946 and 1978, the government of India decided to do so again on November 8, 2016, wherein higher demonetization currency notes of rupees 500 and rupees 1000 of rupees 1000 were seized to legal tender, except for a few specified purposes. This currency was to be deposited in the banks by December 30, 2016, which restrictions were placed on cash withdrawals. So the aims of demonetization to curb the corruption and penalize illicit activities which and wealth acquired from it, to pay way for the digitalization by shifting transactions out of the cash economy and into the formal payment system, to curtail circulation of counterfeit currencies, to tax unaccounted private wealth maintained in form of cash. ensure great transparency and a reduction in tax evasion by restricting cash transactions and giving a boost to digital transactions to reduce informal savings and channelize them through formal banking system. The money deposited in banks and could provide a base for giving more loans at a lower interest rates. Impact of demonetization. A slowdown in the growth process was witnessed as the demonetization reduced both demand and supply in the market due to lack of liquidity, reduced working capital availability and increased uncertainty with a major impact on cash intensive sectors like agriculture, real estate and jewelry etc. A decline in the stock of black money could be seen as some holders came into the tax net. There was a sharp rise in the bank deposit and financial system savings. Government's revenue from taxes increased because of increased disclosures, and there has been a decline in the indirect and corporate taxes. Then demonetization is an effect of tax administration measure, and black money holders are not left with any choice but to declare their wealth and pay taxes on the penalties. So this was a gist of demonetization. Goods and service taxes. The goods and service tax is an indirect tax levied on the supply of goods and services. GST Act was passed in the Parliament on 24th March 2017 and it came into effect from 1st July 2017. Goods and service tax is a comprehensive multi-stage destination-based tax. Then that is levied on every value of addition by the central and state government before the implementation of goods and service tax. Various central and state government and local taxes were levied in India. These indirect taxes have now been subsumed under GST, which is based on the principle of one nation, one tax. So what are the features of GST? GST is a comprehensive tax. GST is a multi-stage tax. GST is a value-added tax and GST is a destination-based tax. So the subsumed taxes are the central excise duty, service tax, central sales tax, and the central level taxes have been subsumed, and in the state level taxes, entertainment tax, VAT, and octroi and entry tax, purchase tax, and taxes on lotteries have been subsumed in state level. GST structure in India. GST, central GST, CGST, where the tax revenue will be collected by the central government, and state GST, where the tax revenue will be collected by the state government, and for intra-state sales, that is within the state IGST, where the tax revenue will be collected by state central government for interstate sales, that is sales from one state to another. Then advantages of GST. Before that, we can say that the tax rates, rules, regulations are governed by the GST Council, which consists of the finance minister of a center and a state. So goods and service tax have been divided into following tax slabs for collection of tax, namely 0%, 5%, 0% for food, that is essential items, then 5%, 12%, 18% and 28% on luxury items and tobacco. Advantages of GST. GST has been widely hurdled for many things, especially its potential to create one Indian market. So what are the advantages? Foster economic growth, ease of doing business, then attracting foreign investment, ensure better tax compliance, reduction in the cost of goods. So these are the advantages of GST. So if you want, you can make a note of this. So this is all about the third chapter, liberalization, privatization and globalization.